Hey folks, welcome back. Ford Superduty electronic shift on the fly, vacuum hubs, all that stuff we're going to troubleshoot today. We've got our subject right here, which is a 2002. Started out as it was, it would engage, but it would sometimes not disengage all the time. Sometimes it would, but now it's pretty much gotten to the point where it won't engage and it definitely won't disengage. So we're going to troubleshoot that. And we're going to understand how these systems work. First, let's get a different camera view and we will talk about a couple of different types of 4x4 systems between these two pickups. And we'll see if, so you can identify what yours might be. So let's get a different camera view. All right, most common systems you're going to find are these. This is your ESOF, electronic shift on the fly type system. They have automatic hubs that look like these, which are left in auto, but they do have a manual override so that if your vacuum system something funky with it, or your 4x4 control, anything electronic in there, at least if if your switch is working to engage your transfer switch or your transfer case, at least you can lock these in manually and have four-wheel drive. So we'll go through some of the components. Here is a hub that's out, and we'll talk about how to service these, how these work a little bit later on. We'll talk about the systems in here. This is your vacuum pump. It's a motor, basically, pump. And we'll talk about how this needs to operate. This is your vacuum storage canister. That way you've got, enough vacuum. You kind of can almost use vacuum as it's just opposite of air pressure. And if you had an air compressor and you stored your pressure into a tank, you've got enough to use for a while until it starts draining down and then the compressor comes back on. That's exactly what you're doing here. You're storing the vacuum. It's opposite of air pressure, and your pump's gonna come on. Once it gets to a desired amount that it wants, the pumps will shut off. You don't want to have these things run all the time. That's indicating that you've got a problem. Like you could have a crack. I've seen cracks in these, and I've seen breaks in the lines come off. Bad. You got rubber connectors in all of these, so they could go bad over time. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. This is your 4x4. Is the PVH valve. It's a pulse vacuum, and I don't know what the rest of it does, or what the H stands for. Essentially, when you choose 4x4 high, this valve is going to send. Okay, well, let's back up a little bit. Okay, vacuum pump, vacuum reservoir, vacuum canister, whatever you want. So we got the line coming out of the pump going into vacuum reservoir. All right, so that's storing the vacuum. So now coming out of the vacuum reservoir, we've got this line right here, which goes over and supplies this valve with vacuum. All right, we'll pause that there. The other line goes up through here, across there, right there, down there, and just disappears. What's that one for? That is for your HVAC controls inside. So the other troubleshooting step that you can do is, start your truck up. You don't have to start the truck up. You can turn the key on, turn your fan on high and change between defrost, vent, and floor, and see if all that stuff changes. If it does, chances are you've got your vacuum pumps working and you've got good vacuum in here. Doesn't mean you don't have a leak. That system can still work if you still have sort of a leak. So that's one way to test it. Another common thing that happens with these things is, let's say you've got your air conditioning on, it's blowing out of the vents, and you go to turn it into 4x4 high, and then all of a sudden it quits coming out of the air conditioning vents, comes out of your defrost, because that's the default position when there's no vacuum to this system. Defaults to defrost, and sometimes it'll come back after the vacuum builds up again. That's indicating a couple things. It's indicating a leak in some of these lines here. That's indicating that it's losing vacuum, because you might have a leak from the seals in the hubs. A lot of different things. So let's yeah, all right, so we got this line that goes into your HVAC system. Now, probably should have, so like I said, we've got the line coming out of the reservoir, coming in here, and it is, I believe, it's the red one. There's a red and white line. So I think the red one's the one that's the supply. So it's going to have vacuum on it all the time. And then this, controlled between your 4x4 control module and some parts of the actual gem module. Let's go have a look at that. Okay, so in this pickup, this 4x4 control module is located right underneath here. So you pop this out, just pull this down. You just kind of bend it in a little bit, and you can pull it down. Whoa. Neat. Huh. That ain't mine. I've never had this open before. Awesome. Free beer koozie. I don't know why there's no free beer in there. Yeah, I'll try to get the angle right. There is your 4x4 control module. Alright, right underneath the dash, underneath the glove box. Alright, the gem module is behind the fuse panel, or a lot more. That doesn't come into play with the troubleshooting that we're working on, because our system, between turning the switch, okay, so our system, by turning the switch to 4 high, actually works. And I don't know if you can hear that vacuum pump has now come on, and 4x4 low also works, so I know that the transfer case is actually shifting into gear. One way to test that right quick is just come underneath of here and grab your drive line. If you can't turn it, now I should be able to turn it because both of these wheels are up off the ground now. So the transfer case is engaged because pickup is in gear. And so we know that that works with the transfer case. And we switch to 4 high. Now in a 6-speed manual, you need to have your foot on the brake and the clutch pedal pushed in. And there your other 4x4 low range comes on. You can hear the actuator down here. Let's see if I can. You might be able to hear that. Okay, so now we're back into 2 high. Now, one reason I like to put these wheels up is because if we grab it here, it's a good way to test and see we don't have these locked in. So let's go try to put this thing back into 4x4 high. Okay, we heard the click. Vacuum pump is on. No lockage. We should see. Now if I lock this thing in That's what you need to see when they're locked in, is that turns right there. So, turn this back to auto. Alright, let's do a little troubleshooting on this vacuum pump since it's on. We'll go ahead and pull this line off. See, it got easier to do because now it's not doing anything. Cover this with your finger and it should shut it off because you're stopping the flow. And it's going. It should got this thing back in too high now, so this should be off. Everything should be off. It's just going to build up vacuum, and eventually it's going to shut itself off. That's what it's supposed to do. If it doesn't, you've got a leak somewhere. And if you're in 4x4 or if you're in two-wheel drive, your leak system should be just limited to vacuum canister and or any of these lines going in this direction back into the cab, and not this line which runs down to the frame and then goes and splits off. And I'm not exactly there, my pump just shut off, so we've got vacuum all built up down there. This goes down to the frame, splits off to each side to this line right here. And I know this is kind of bouncing back and forth between a lot of different things. It's just, I guess I should have come up with some kind of a plan, and we're going to talk about this and this and this, but that didn't happen. So anyways, where were we at? We can, okay, so the other thing you can do, let's get a stand for this camera. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is that line, remember, the going into the dash for the HVAC system. Going to try to do this, and I'm going to be very quiet because I'm going to break this line apart and I want you to listen. Hear that? Now what we're going to do is, we can hear that it's got good vacuum, but we're going to verify it by hooking a vacuum gauge to it. Now we're hooked straight in the line that's going straight in to this T right here, which goes down into your vacuum canister. That's your supply. And so we're getting vacuum. Right now it's at 8 inches HG. Keep going up and up and up. Right now we've got plenty of vacuum to make this 4x4 system work. It basically, yeah, let's get this pump shut off, and then we'll talk about the hubs a little bit and what they do. Okay, with this hub, it's just like the ones in that pickup. We are unlocked right here. Okay, this is where your axle goes through. These splines line up onto the hub and spindle itself. So if you lock this in manually, I'm going to turn this. Now, this gear splines are now locked into these gear splines, and that's how it works. So, got to get this damn thing unlocked. Okay, this is an old hub, so it doesn't work as great as it's supposed to. Now the vacuum portion of this deal, and why we've got our solenoid valve right here, which they call a PVH, which is, I know the first two, which is, it's pulse vacuum something or other. But what they do is it takes a higher amount of vacuum to lock the hubs in, and then they're going to stay locked in. The vacuum is probably kind of going to bleed off from there. It really should bleed off a little bit, but they're going to stay locked in. And so you can have symptoms like we did with this pickup first, where they wouldn't disengage even after you've taken it out of four-wheel drive. So that's why this video can help with both engagement and disengagement, because this valve has to do both of those. It has to send high vacuum through the same line to engage it, and then when you use your four-wheel drive for however long you use it, go back to too high, it's got to send a little bit lower amount of vacuum. And I don't know the actual numbers of HG. I want to say it's like maybe 10 to 12 inches HG to lock them in, and then maybe like anywhere from 5 to 7 to unlock them. So what we're doing is you're moving a diaphragm in here, and you can essentially assume that this part right here kind of works like this pin. You see how this click, click? So with this unlocked, and you push this, let's see if I can do it while you can see it. Push this down, click. Oh, come on, don't make a liar out of me. Okay, locked. Then you take a little bit of pressure, unlocked. You gotta remember, this hub is old and it doesn't work like it's supposed to. Boom, there, locked. Take a little bit of pressure, unlocked. Locked, nope. Well, we get the idea. If I had a good working hub, it'd probably be better, but that's essentially what it does. All right, so let's go on to troubleshooting this system. Okay, we're going to go into this pinpoint test. Front axle does not engage or disengage correctly, because we know all the rest of the stuff like vehicle do not shift between 4x4 and 4x4 low. We know it does do all that, so we're into this right here. Oh, I'm going to have to log into this again. Whoops. All right, so we'll come up here to the first one here, and it was talking about, is there any, right here by my mouse cursor, any DTCs, diagnostic trouble codes, retrieved? And in our case, it says no. So you'd go to, it's saying go to the G8. When we're talking about the different G numbers, we're talking about, this is G1, and this is G2. So if you had a diagnostic troubleshooting code of 1832, you'd go to G2. And then we're talking about here, let's just go through it as if we did have that. So we're talking about right here, measure the voltage between the PVH solenoid. This is their part number, CV or C1247, circuit 295, harness side and ground. So we're going to go for the harness. We're going to go from that middle pin to ground, and then we'll want to know if the voltage is greater than 10 volts. So let's go have a look at that. All right, your key has to be on. Can you see that volt here? Nope. How about now? All right, what we're going to do, we're going to unplug this. We're going to take our positive lead, put it in that pin, And you won't be able to see it on the camera, but I'm just going to go just straight to the battery. You can't really see it, but it's just right out of view. Well, here's part of it right there. Greater than 10 volts, 11.94. And I've had this key on this pickup for a long time, so these batteries are down some, but should be above 12. But we are above greater than 10 volts, so that step is good. I would reckon that that particular fault should happen when, you know, it didn't have the voltage there coming back through the ground and telling the ECM what's going on. Okay, we're going to go through steps G3 and G4. Now this is Mitchell, and they do have a DIY. You can pay for to get all this stuff for your any particular vehicle you want. For the most part, it works all right. So we can get this blown up, see how big it is. Oh, perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about these two steps, and then we're going to go out and do them. So they want to do is we're going to check this circuit 605 and 145. So we got a red wire and then a gray/black. We're going to check it from a short to voltage. So remember, we had voltage on this middle terminal. We're supposed to have voltage there. You could have a short somewhere, and that's what they're wanting you to check here, is to check and see if you've got a short between you're going to put 1 meter lead on ground, and you go to this pin, and you should not have any voltage, and you're going to go to this pin, and you should not have any voltage. So if there was, you know, repair the circuit, clear the DTCs, and repeat. But if no, then go to G4, and here we are. This is a short to voltage. Now we're going to check and see if we've got a short to ground, because that's a different test. And so basically it's putting the meter in ohms, and you're doing the same thing. You're going to have your 1 lead on ground, and then you're going to go with this pin and this pin, and then are the resistance greater than 10,000 ohms? If yes, go to G5, which is the next step, because this is step G4 up here where my cursor is. If no, then repair the circuit, because you could have one of these wires that's going from this plug, you know, shorted somewhere on wherever it goes, frame, firewall. I mean, it could be shorted to ground anywhere. This particular test is this wire shorted? Are these wires shorted to each other? Meaning this one to this one. That's what they're talking about. So let's go out there and do that. Okay, so we are going to select DC voltage. Set that there. Remember, this is the plug we're talking about when it says harness side. So there's your wires. So we're going to have this lead. It's out of the camera view, but that is on ground. And then we are going, remember, we checked the middle one, had power. Okay. Middle one, my fingers are in the way. Okay, that's good. Get some off of it now. Okay, that's good. All right. So if I can get a better view here. Okay, so now we're going to test this pin on the right. No voltage. Test this pin. No voltage. Test the middle one again. Voltage. No voltage on the right or left. No voltage on the right. Okay. Now what they're going to do, I want us to do, is to check the ohms resistance to ground to see if the other thing you can do. Well, it wouldn't give you. Never mind. It wouldn't give you. So we're got the meter on ohms. Now this particular meter, the OL, is kind of your, you know, indefinite infinity resistance between, because right now there's a huge resistance between this lead and this lead because they're not connected. Touch them together and we've got about a half an ohm. 0.0 kind of moves a little bit. I think I need to replace my leads. They're starting to get you know, if you get into actual like electronics and stuff that's really sensitive to that kind of stuff. Yeah, we need to replace my leads, but they're kind of jumping around a little bit. But anyways, that's the ohms there. So now we're going to put this negative lead on the ground, and then we're going to do the same thing and go from this point to this point. We've got about 9,000. Okay, that's not 8.57 ohms. Both of them are that way. So it's about 9,000. So still a lot. It's not quite above the 10,000 that they were talking about, but that's a lot of ohms that it's not actually shorted. They just use that particular number. But if you notice, like on this meter, right now you're reading the OL, and you see that M, that's mega ohms. I mean, it just doesn't, it's so, the resistance so high between the two that it doesn't know how to read it. And so when we go to here and just getting this out of this, you can see the meter itself. Well, now look what we've got. Yeah, I need to replace my leads. Okay, so that's 13.9. Now see the K ohms right there. Get a different view there. That is kilo ohms. So that is 13.98 kilo ohms, which is basically 13,000. You know, it's almost 14,000 volts. Oh my gosh, my mind. That is almost 14,000 kilo ohm, or ohms, 14,000 ohms. So we are not shorted to ground on that particular circuit. So that's good. Okay. So the resistance is greater than 10,000 ohms. Not really, but close enough that we're not, I don't believe we're shorted. So we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go to, which ones were those? Okay. So now the next step is, this one I tried filming, and it's just too difficult. You're going to take the, there's two plugs on that 4x4 control module. The bigger one here that has some more wires on there, and you want to measure the resistance between the 4x4 control module C281B, which is this circuit 605. It's a red wire harness side, so you're going to be doing it on the harness side, and the PVH solenoid. So this is that one we were just working on, circuit 605 red. And when we did measure this, the resistance between that was it was less than this 5 ohms right here. So that means that wire in between this pin, this red wire, and this right here, it's a good wire. So if not, then you'd repair the circuit, and it should be setting you off a diagnostic troubleshooting code that we established on G1. And so check the PVH solenoid coils themselves, and that's what we're going to do next. So basically what we're doing is you're going to be measure the resistance between the PVH solenoids. This is on the solenoid itself, between solenoid terminal 1 and terminal 3, and then measure between terminal 2 and 3. So 1's your common. You're going to put your negative lead coming out here, and it's going to go to 1. And then you're going to check the resistance between this pin and this pin. So let's go do that. Okay, so as we read this, resistances are the resistance between 45 and 55, and that's what we're going to go ahead and check. If yes, then you go to G7. If not, if no, then you would install a new PVH solenoid. Pulse vacuum hub lock. I didn't know what the H meant for, but we both, or all of us, know now. Pulse vacuum hub lock solenoid. Clear the DTCs and repeat the self-test. Okay, so what we're going to do, we get right in there, and we're going to do these pins. Now I was having trouble. It's not written anywhere as to which one is pin 1. So what we're going to do, it's either this one or this one. I assume it's this one, but I don't know 100% for sure. There's only 3 of them, so you can't make too big of a screw up on that. So we're going to see if we can get good camera view of everything here. Let me pause it while I do that. Okay, hopefully we could read that, so it's about the best I can do camera view wise. We're going to go over here. I'm going to put this on to pin 1, which is the one on the far right. Let's get a little light on the subject here. Okay, between what I think is pin 1 and the other pin, and we've got nothing. Nothing there. Go to the next pin, which is the one that's on the far left. Oh, for crying out loud, this light really screwing me up. We got nothing. Got nothing. Okay. Now, since I'm not sure which pin is pin 1, we're going to put our common negative onto the far right pin, because that could be pin 1, and go between this pin, and we got 48 ohms on that one, which apparently would be good. But we don't have anything on the other pin on the far right. So that's what we got between this pin and this pin, we've got 49 ohms. Between this pin and this pin, we've got nothing. Now, if this was pin 1, go between here to this pin, we've got nothing. And between here to this pin, we've got nothing. So either way, we've got a bad solenoid. So that's how we found that. So, and the curious thing is I thought I didn't have any DTCs. Let's go double check that, because we should have some diagnostic troubleshooting codes for that. Let's go double check that. Okay, so we are now here at this no, install this new PVH solenoid. If this was a yes, it would go to G7. We'll go to G7 a little bit later. Let's get the scan tool out. Okay, we're gonna go launch. This is a Launch X431 scan tool. Ford. I'll go ahead and pause it till I get connected here. Alright, so once you get in here, this particular scan tool, a lot of them are the same, but you're going to want to go to system selection, and that's going to bring up all your different modules. Now, what I messed up on is I went to the powertrain control module and was looking for DTCs, and just a mind flop, if you want to call it. but we need to go into the gem module and look there. So we're into the gem module, go to read fault code. They do have a self-test deal if you were actually testing on the gem module itself. The gem module does a lot of different things. Now this would have helped me do my particular troubleshooting a lot faster, but the good thing is we got to see a lot of the things. We've got 2 codes in there, and they're, you know, we got a circuit fault for the transfer case 4-wheel drive, and so yeah, we need to clear those, replace that solenoid, and we should be good to go. So let's continue on with a few other things. Let's go and verify this, and I know a way that we can do it. Okay, so right now we are unlocked. Right in there, because we're not turning the U-joints there. We're looking at this right here. That can turn independently of the axle. So we're not locked in. So what we're gonna do, go ahead and move all this stuff. My idea is we're gonna go ahead and remove this line off of here. So we got it removed here. Remember, this line goes down to your hubs. This goes back to the solenoid. Remember, this supplies the vacuum system with your HVAC with, you know, this line goes in there, so this is coming out. So when we pull this off, vacuum pump comes back on. Let's go ahead and stick this on here for a good amount of time. And we should be locked when it gets the vacuum built up. Okay, we are locked in now. We'll remove the vacuum from that deal. The pump's still gonna go. Should remain locked in, because that's what it did. It took a lot of vacuum to lock it. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take, we're just barely going to put this line back on here, and I'm going to touch it together and then remove it right quick. Try to do it. That way it doesn't, and we are unlocked. So, let's do this. We'll do it again, just for giggles and shits. Okay, put that hooked on there. Okay, we are locked in. Hope y'all ain't getting dizzy from moving that camera around. Okay. Unhook that. We're losing our vacuum, you know, out of there. But this still should remain locked in, which it is. And we'll just barely touch this. And we are unlocked. That verifies we need a new solenoid on here. Get all this put that together. Okay, got that all put back together. Hopefully, you know, what we did was we just took this supply line and we just put it to this line, which runs down to the hubs. Put it on for, you know, a long period of times. We build up more vacuum that locked the hubs in. Then what we did is we removed the supply from this line. The hubs were still locked in because they are going to be locked in. And then what we did is we took the supply and we just barely touched it together for just about half a second to a second and removed it because it's not going to build up as much vacuum, and then it unlocked the hubs. And that's how it's supposed to work. So in this pickup we know that we've got this solenoid. Now if you didn't find any of these problems, you can come down here and you know, pop this line off right here, put a vacuum gauge on it, actuate your four-wheel drive, get your you know, system to you know, measure the vacuum, you know, from this line, because you should be reading the same, you know, as you get a full supply of vacuum. And then when you go to turn it off, you should have probably half that amount. So if you were reading, say, 10 Hg down here, then when you go to put it in, let's say 4 high, and then you know, 10 to 12, and then turn it back to two-wheel drive, and then you should read probably anywhere from 5 to 7 inches Hg, and that should unlock the hubs. And that's what that solenoid does. So yeah, that's troubleshooting this. Now we'll go through a couple of other things on some other systems here in just a little bit. Turn my light off so I don't run the battery out. Anyways, well, I'm going to call this replacing this. There's a screw on this side and there's a screw on this side. Unplug the connector we were doing before, and then unplug the vacuum lines off of it and replace it. So that's what this pickup needs. If you don't want to do any of this type of stuff, you can plug off this vacuum line right here so you don't lose any vacuum there, and you can install, or you can use these as manuals if you want, or if you wanted to install, this pickup used to have these on it because they didn't want to fix the system, and I went through and I replaced, we did new wheel bearings, we replaced the inner seal, and then I replaced and got new hubs and everything. That's where this pickup, you know, stood from. Everything worked for a little bit for a while, until it started acting up, and it looks like, you know, that valve went bad. But these, the way these hubs work, this is a old automatic hub. That's some of the innards in there. Could show you actually how to take that apart, but this is how these worn hubs, these are a good quality type of hub. Anything, you know, from this brand or whatever, but you can see this is the same design. So this goes into the splines, and it's just a manual locking hub, which is like what this pickup has. And your pickup could have a similar setup like this, because this pickup does not have the shift on the fly. We've got an actual manual lever. Now I don't know the newer pickups if they do have this, and maybe even some of these. This pickup happens to be a 99. You can still, you know, have this, I believe, where it could be a a type of a shift on the fly, you know, you can move this into, but I don't think so. I haven't seen them, because the most common ones are the shift on the fly with the switch right here, but this is purely mechanical. Getting that into four-wheel drive for this pickup. As you can see right here, we have a vacuum pump and a vacuum reservoir. We've got our line that runs out of the reservoir up here and disappears in there for your dash control for your HVAC system. But what we don't have is that valve. So these are purely mechanical hubs. I don't know if this might be dark enough to see or not. Oh, we can probably see it, but you can see this little nub right here. That's where your vacuum line would go if this had this system. So I mean, you could theoretically add the parts and, you know, and try to figure out how to make it work. You'd have to add the 4x4 control module, and some of the harnesses might, I don't know. If you didn't have that, wouldn't worry about it, but I guess it's always possible you could install it. So anyways, if you're missing all this stuff, you don't have automatic locking hubs, and so just thought I'd show you that. The way these can come apart is if get something like a pick or a little small screwdriver, and you come in here and you start working out this kind of a snap ring type of deal here. Start just kind of working it out. Eventually you get to the point where it just comes out. Grab this in here, pull this out. Sometimes this gear stays. This has got a lot of grease in it. I wouldn't want that much grease. You don't want this, you know, you want it to be greased and moved, but you don't want it to get stuck. But you do want some grease on this, and you can, you know, like this one right here, I'd clean this all, if it were going to be reused, I'd clean this completely up with some solvent and everything, stuff that doesn't degrade any rubber or anything like that. Brake clean would not be a good thing to use. Get this all cleaned up, maybe let it soak. You can actually pour some automatic transmission fluid in there, let that soak. If you did that enough, that's all you would need to do. So, and there's a snap ring here you can pull off, and there's actually a bearing inside there that needs to be, you can repack with some grease and stuff there too. But to get this back in, you just kind of do that, push it, it kind of just seats itself back in there. So yeah, messy job, but somebody's got to do it, right? All right, folks, we're at this on a different day, same day for you. Got us a new valve going. Okay, had to pause for a phone call coming in. So, one-man operation shop going on here. Don't have a secretary to do that. So anyways, there we got our new valve. Got a bolt right there, another bolt on that side, if you probably can't see it, but mounts on either side of this with it slotted. One can come out and the other one, or one can come completely out. That one can just come out slightly. What I do is I go ahead and pop this plug off the vacuum pump, because when you remove this line, you're going to leak the vacuum out that's supplied on here when you take this line off. And then, you know, that way the pump doesn't just sit there and run and run and run. So the way this comes off, probably going to need two hands for it, but kind of lift up on this tab and pull it out. So get that off. All right, get that off, and then pull these vacuum lines off. And just remember, they both, you can't mix them up. So there we go. vacuum leaking out of that one. There's your supply. So it's the red hose does your supply. The other one is your line. So now we're done leaking out. But if we had the pump plugged in, the pump would just be sitting here running. The other one, which is your black hose right here, is hooked up to this line, which runs down to your hubs. So red is your supply to the valve, and then when the valve does its thing how it wants to, it controls the vacuum to this line down to your hubs as it needs to. Guess I should say, if you don't have your key on, your vacuum pump's not going to come on. So sometimes it can be kind of a idiot every once in a while. But anyways, get your my key is on right now. Just FYI, if you didn't have the key on, then your pump's not going to come on when you lose the vacuum. So probably don't have your key on. You don't have to unplug that. But these look like 8mm to get those screws out. All right, 8mm is close enough. I'm going to use this swivel. It's an actual socket that swivels. If you don't have that, you can use a U-joint swivel like that. But if you might be able to finagle your socket in there straight, maybe if you took the battery out, or you might be able to do it. I mean, you don't have to worry about touching this because this is your negative. This one you can get totally in there straight, but some way or another you get it out. Okay, so we left that screw in there. Took the other screw completely out. So now when we slide this new one in, I can get the plug out of the way. We'll slide the plug right there, and then and we'll start the other screw on the other side, and we'll tighten them up. And it just needs to be just snug. And remember, it's plastic, so when I was saying you can't mix these up because of how that's molded together. So we're going to go ahead and get those put back on. Smash them on there good. We're going to plug this in, and then I'm going to plug mine in. You probably don't have to because you were smarter to just not have the key on while you did that. Let it build some vacuum and get that pump to shut off, and then we're going to give it a try. Alright, so we are unlocked there, and if we go around to this side, we're unlocked there too. So we'll come in here, I'll reach in and turn this to, if I can reach it, turn this to 4 high. Okay, got 4 high. Now we're locked in, and I can feel it moving the other tire. So I'm pretty sure we're locked in on that side. And we are. So what'll happen is as you rotate it, see that one? I'm rotating this tire this way. It's the way the differential works when it's being held by the driveline. The driveline can't turn right now because it's locked. The transfer case is locked, or in with the driveline, and you can see it tries to turn, but it can't because the pickup's in gear. So what we'll do now is we will put this back in 2 high. Now it's not going to be immediate that these will lock back up, you're gonna take a while, and road vibrations and bumps and stuff like that could speed this process up, but it could take up to, you know, it says 45 seconds, but it could take up to a minute or so before that goes, before it unlocks. But see, now your driveline will turn because it's not engaged anymore. There it goes, it's just unlocked. We'll check the other side. Other side's unlocked too. So our system is working like it's supposed to. Vacuum's still building up. Alright, so one other test you can do is test to make sure that, you know, you should have enough vacuum that, you know, what was happening with this thing before when I had the manual hubs on here, you go to put this thing in four-wheel drive, and if you had the vent on, you know, or coming out of these vents, it would go up to the defrost, because it lose the vacuum and it go back to its default position, which is to come out of the defrost. So I got this paper on here to show, you know, we got it coming out of the vents right now. It's cold in here, so I got the heat turned plumb up. And let's see if we can keep that straight like that. We will, if we can monitor everything, we'll turn the four-wheel drive on. Did not deviate for anything, so might as well just go ahead and try the low range. And you got to have in the manuals, you got to have your clutch pushed in and the brake pedal pushed in. The automatics, you got to have your foot on the brake, and I believe have your selector lever in neutral to make your low range switch. I believe coming out too, but for between 4 high and 2 high, you just drive, you know. So did not deviate or anything, still coming out of the vents, so we fixed that. Turn this back off. We'll go out and make sure that, double check and make sure again that everything, you know, seems to be good. So okay, back to being unlocked on that wheel. And unlocked on that wheel. So system's working good. The rest of your troubleshooting is most likely going to be putting a vacuum gauge on here, and we might just do that right now just to see what it does. You know, pull this line off, put a vacuum gauge on it, see what you get, and if it's good vacuum between this line, then you're going to have to do your inner seal and possibly the O-ring that's on your hub, which is and this is one of these auto hubs too. It's the one we were playing with the other day, but this O-ring right here is replaceable and probably should be replaced every time you pull these out and whatnot. Not every time, but sometimes it, you know, should be done fairly often. Another thing that's good to do with your hubs, if you don't use four-wheel drive all the time, cycling these back and forth between auto and manual is good to do. So yeah, let's see if I can locate my vacuum gauge, since I don't see it right now. Put it on there and see what we get for vacuum when we engage to four-wheel drive, and what we get when we go to back to 2 high. Okay, all right, vacuum gauge has been located, so we're key on, we're back in 4 high. We put it up in here. Oh, it went away. Okay, see what I told you, these vacuum lines that will go away. It was up here at about 10, and so we might do that again, but let's see what it gets to when we take it into 2 high. So let's do that. Okay, so now about 6 inches HG. And that should unlock the hub, and then it goes away. So let's go ahead and put it back into, oh, I just hit my, right above my hip into that corner there. Oh, ow, lovely. Okay, put it back into 4 high. And down here, we are getting up to 8. It should lock the hubs in with that amount of vacuum. It was almost a 10 before, but that should be enough. I mean, well, it was enough. It's working. And eventually that should drop out. It's not going to sit there and hold vacuum to it all the time. It's not how the system's really supposed to work. There it goes. Now it drops out. Okay. So now what we'll do, if I had a camera stand, I would leave this right here, but I don't have my camera stand with me. But what we'll do is right quick put this thing into 2 high. Okay, 2 high. And about 6 again. And then it will unlock. So our valve's working. That's, I guess, some good numbers that you should be seeing, because our system's working now. It drops out. So cool. Alright, so that should conclude everything as far as troubleshooting goes. At each hub, like we just did with pulling that line off in there, and if you get anything close to those numbers, your system should be working, provided you've got working hubs. And you can actually take, if you had a vacuum gauge or a vacuum pump like this, and you can pump this up, and you can make them hubs work with that too. But if you're getting those numbers to each line on each side here, most likely if you're still having problems beyond what we did to troubleshoot this valve, you can take this line off at this elbow here, and because it's, like I said, this line goes down to your hubs. It goes down to the frame, and then it tees off to the left and goes to the right. This line here runs around and disappears over there for your air conditioning and heater controls. So we troubleshot this deal here, found out that it was bad, and then if all your tests are good and everything seems to be good, and you're getting good numbers down there, then you've got either problems with your hubs themselves, the O-ring, which is there, or your inner seal, which is inside the that's a big job. You're going to have to take out the whole bearing and the axle, U-joint, all that stuff's got to come out to change that. There's videos on YouTube that exist on how to do it. You need a special tool to install it. That's all stuff we're not talking about on here. This video mainly deals with the vacuum operated hubs, and if I run across any of these that have issues with the dash switch or anything like that, I'll make more videos on that if I get one in the shop here. So anyways, that's hopefully all I can think of at the moment for troubleshooting these. And I didn't know if I went over, to take these out, it's real easy. You just squeeze this little ring like here, pull it out, and pull this out. Now, I have had these things be really stuck in here. If you just kind of gently tap right in this area, not out here, but right in this area here, sometimes you can get these things to wiggle loose and save them. But if you really have to beat on them, pretty much after that, That's what happened to this guy right here. It was beat on so much that we couldn't even turn this, and I took a pair of pliers trying to turn that back to unlocked or something, and it broke that deal there. But it just wouldn't even turn because this one was really stuck in here. These teeth were really bad, and that was months ago of some pickup when I took that off. I don't even know why I still have this sitting here, but I guess there it is. Anyways, so that's all I can think of as far as troubleshooting these vacuum operated hubs and your PVH valve and all that, and your vacuum lines. It's a real simple system, and it's really easy to troubleshoot if a person just knows how to do it right. So with that, hope that all helps you out some, and thanks for watching.